All right. No, I did. It did. Still at 94. Yeah. The rest of it. Yeah.
That's what I was. Well, there. How are you? Okay.
Good.
You gonna make any comments? I don't know. I think Steve's gonna make. Let's go forward. I was gonna comment on this, you know, how much we, how good the IRP is, and customer advisory partnership is. And it seems strange now with doing the IRP. There's still various projects going on. Essentially go completely around the IRP. State market. So
That's no bad.
nice to still stay home. I think.
Yeah.
Where'd you find that?
Good to see you again.
We
I know.
get spoiled.
He was interested. He told me rates
I
too.
thought that was good.
We ran.
Yeah.
Oh, really? He was the guy who. Oh, we get only molecular steam.
I.
This is from. Referred me to. But I actually get like. Looks on with this. Steam developed.
It was nice to meet you. Yes, and we will on stuff.
One consideration. Just
Somebody, I'll start.
what it costs for. Consideration is what would it cost? You see, that's not a lot. These businesses were producing spoon. You absolutely get to know if no cost. Utility can charge them. To get what the understand what else is a cost. I think this is I want to make sure I'm using. I don't know if you noticed, Texas just signed a bill in Friday. Allows grid operators to do mandatory tailwind. Yeah, they try to get them to join voluntary man response. 24 hours notice. Sometimes. Nice to see you. Thank you. My fault. You usually have to go up to that. I'm since COVID, you don't have to go up.
I suggest.
Yeah, right. Some people want to be. The fact that we don't have to.
I know, just, they'll take that. And I guess, you know, it's not, that's gonna. And I'm still some. That's like you. That's this separate and the facts of. Well, not what they really want to wait. Like, no, that's the case. The first tradition. I don't need to do that. It's his place. Oh, let me reach it all the time. Well, this is, that guy said, so we're not sex effective. That's not good for him. Oh.
So,
It's not. It's the worst time of the. It's not. Oh, if you get a good. Oh, I care.
what's the Texas?
Okay.
No, it's served to. No, they want just one Texas. Oh, that's a good. Texas. Erica.
The older one. They. Yeah. That's fair.
Good afternoon. It's really nice to see so many people here. This is the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission's regular open meeting on Thursday, June 26th at 1 p.m. And this will be my first time leading this meeting. And so I'm sure that the blooper reels are going to be awesome for this one. So we'll go ahead and get started and with the roll call.
Commissioner Nyberg,
Present.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Present.
Commissioner O'Connell.
Here.
All commissioners are present and you have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and next on the agenda is the pledge. So we'll go ahead and do that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among United States. Thank you for that. The next item on the agenda is consideration and approval of the agenda. Commissioners, do you have any changes that you would like to suggest? Given that we don't have any changes, then I would move to approve the agenda as posted.
Okay.
Got a second?
Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Nyberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilera.
Yes.
The motion to proceed with the agenda as posted has passed unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Great. All right. Well, we have a lot of business to conduct and we're going through it pretty quickly. The next item on the agenda is public comment. And for public comment, we normally allow 3 minutes per comment. And that's when we have a lot of it. I think when we have fewer, you know, we can do a little bit more than that. But do we have anybody here in person who would like to provide public comment? Go ahead, sir. Please introduce yourself, name and organization.
Okay, my name is Don Kurtz. I live here in Las Cruces, and I'm just a private citizen and user of electricity. I want to thank you first just for being here. It's really great to have you come down. I know it's a long ways, and we appreciate it. I want to just mention a couple of things. We've been really appreciative of our relationship over the last couple of years with El Paso Electric. They initiated a customer advisory partnership where we feel they were quite frank to us, and as far as it goes, obviously, but about what they're thinking. And they seemed legitimately interested in our concerns. So it's been a good process, and I really appreciate them doing that. Likewise, the integrated resource plan process that we're going through right now, which is morphing into the integrated system process, has also been very good. And we really appreciate being able to participate that. And the consultants are good. It's been a good thing. I hope you continue that kind of process. It is kind of strange to be right in the middle of the IRP process where we're talking about resources and have so little discussion. I mean, there's some, but so little discussion about the large users, large load users. And it's obviously something that you all are thinking about. And I think it would be a good time from my perspective that El Paso Electric talk directly with us about some of their parameters and what they're thinking about, because it's been a great process, but somehow that's kind of missing. I understand it's a special situation in many ways, but especially in the wake of Senate Bill 6 that passed in Texas and was signed into law on Friday. I don't know if you followed that, but from Utility Dive, Senate Bill 6 pairs mandatory curtailment. This is for large load users. Mandatory curtailment with a voluntary demand response procurement program under which loads of 75 megawatts or more could ramp down or switch to backup generation at utilities' request. It also includes new interconnection disclosure and cost sharing, mandatory interconnection study fees, and protocols for co-locating large loads with existing generations. And obviously we haven't passed that in New Mexico, but I think it's going to be something people throughout the country are thinking about. And certainly I hope and that our friends at El Paso Electric at this very moment are negotiating with their large data customers to accomplish some of these same things, because it's an enormous increase and we're kind of moving along with the IRP without clear discussion of where this is. So it's important to me that we view this as a time of great opportunity, and just like the kinds of things that Texas is requiring, we ought to consider. I hope El Paso Electric is asking for those same things in negotiations. And I don't know when this will finally come out to anything that you pass judgment on, but I hope you'll look for the same kind of robust involvement in creative solutions that Texas is now requiring. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have anybody else in person who would like to provide a comment? It looks like we don't. Mr. Rodriguez, do we have anybody online who would like to provide comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do. And Steve, are you on Zoom right now?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, Steve, go ahead with your comment.
Okay, great. I'm Steve Fishman, former PRC commissioner and resident of Las Cruces. And I'd like to echo Mr. Kurtz's comments. EPE has been terrific in terms of working with us on the IRP, and I'm a stakeholder, operating as a participant and stakeholder in the IRP. And we're really happy to see them moving towards a truly integrated resource plan where all the effects and all the interconnections between distribution, transmission, generation, and grid management are considered as a whole. And clearly that's the direction EPE is going. And I have to say, in the past, the way IRPs were done, focusing on generation, I always felt like we were looking at just half the business, and boy, that's not a good way to plan when you're not putting all the pieces together and how they affect one another. There's a specific motion that EPE has just recently put out asking for a variance from the IRP rule, or a ruling that the current IRP rule does not apply to sections 12 and 14 in particular, to the upcoming RFP and procurement of large customer resources. And I think that's misguided. It frankly does an end around the IRP and makes the work that we're doing moot to a large degree. And I do think, and I'll be submitting comment on this, that the rule actually does support using the current rule for the required RFP. And I hope the commission takes a careful look at it and interprets the motion of what needs to be done in a way that helps speed the process along as EPE requests, but also has the protections that are in the current IRP rule. And thanks for listening, and thanks for being in Las Cruces.
Thank you for your public comment. Mr. Rodriguez, do we have anybody else online?
Mr. Chair, that's it for online public comment.
Okay. Well, thank you for the comments. The next item on the agenda is announcements, and I can start with a few just to note some of the upcoming hearings that or workshops that we have. On July 1, we have a workshop on El Paso Electric's IRP, which is virtual, and that's not one that the commission is hosting, but it is one that EP will have. And we also have our next open meeting. That one will be in Santa Fe, so we'll be back home for that, and that's on July 10. On July 11, we have a hearing for docket number 250019. It's a Foxtail Flats Solar location approval. And on July 16, we have a hearing for docket 250030, and that's an SPS request for approval for increased insurance costs. And on July 16 as well, we have a hearing for docket 250038. That's El Paso Electric's Renewable Energy Act Plan. And on July 17, we have a wildfire workshop, which is the second one in the series, and insurance and risk is going to be a topic for that. And the docket for that is 22-00154. And then in addition to that, just wanted to share that I had a couple of panel discussions this week and last week, one in New York City on transmission planning, and kind of spoke to the efforts that the Western interconnection states are, how we're handling an order that FERC put out on, it's Order 1920, and it's on regional transmission planning, and it provides some opportunities for the states to be engaged in the planning and in the cost allocation. And then I did that in New York, and then I had a similar panel in Arlington, Virginia yesterday. Ended up coming home late last night, which is why I might look a little tired today. And that is all I have by way of announcements. Commissioners, do you have any announcements?
Just echo the gratitude for Doña Ana County for hosting us. Happy to be here.
Likewise, we appreciate the Doña Ana County Commission offering their chambers for this use. And to tell you the truth, it's going to be hard to go back to our own hearing room after seeing this. But we appreciate everybody coming out to participate in this meeting today. And thank you for your comments.
Are there any announcements from the General Counsel's office?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any announcements.
I realized I flipped the order of the announcements, so that's the first blooper here
It's your meeting.
of the
Mr.
day.
Chair.
And so the next item on the agenda is the employee of the month. And so we take turns announcing the employee of the month, and it is my privilege to do that this month. And so I want to congratulate Angelique Herrera, and she is an employee in the Utilities Division. And I will read the nomination, which states, Angelique has been managing the Utility Division's cases and advice notices for over a year and a half. Angelique ensures that all cases and advice notices are recorded and assigned in a timely manner and tracked until closed. In addition to her regular job duties, Angelique has been a great help in the hiring process, as the division has hired several new staff since the time Angelique joined the team. Angelique takes the initiative to get things done and to assist where she sees a need. She does not need to be asked or reminded when something needs to get done. She just gets the job done. And she offers to help wherever she is able. Angelique is a great asset to the division. She provides invaluable support and deserves to be recognized for keeping the Utility Division on track. Congratulations, Angelique. So normally we have a belt. It's like a wrestling championship belt that has the PRC logo and says Employee of the Month. And I'm sure that's probably in Santa Fe right now, but she will get a chance to try it on in Santa Fe. And congratulations. Commissioners, any?
No, just congratulations, Angelique, and we're gonna wear out that belt. We'll see.
Yeah.
You know, I still haven't seen anybody actually wear it in the building. Maybe she'll be the first.
So the next item on the agenda is the approval of prior meeting minutes. We have two sets of minutes, one for May 28 and one for May 29. The May 28 was a special open meeting and May 29 a regular open meeting. Commissioners, are there any changes that you would like to suggest, or is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I had no changes, and if there are none, I'll make the motion to approve the Wednesday, May 28th, 2025 minutes and the Thursday, May 29, 2025 minutes.
And I'll second.
And Mr. Chair, I might add, it seems to me that the minutes are in very good shape. I think there's been vast improvement on the minutes, and who's ever doing that, my congratulations extend to them.
So for the vote to approve the minutes for May 28th and May 29th, Commissioner Aguilera,
Aye.
Commissioner Nyberg,
Yes,
Commissioner O'Connell. The motion to approve the minutes for the May 28th special open meeting and May 29th regular open meeting passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have the consent action items, and we have two sections under this. First, we have 7 utility matters. Commissioners, do you have any comments on any of the items that you would like to make? Okay. Given that there are no comments, I'll go ahead and move to approve the utility matters under the consent action items.
second,
Commissioner Nyberg,
yes.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell.
Yes.
The motion to approve the utility items on the consent action agenda passes unanimously.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Pipeline Safety Bureau matters, and there is an item on the agenda concerning pipeline safety fees. Commissioners, is there any discussion on this item?
Just reflection, I've been around long enough that this is old hat.
Commissioners? Can you hear me? I apologize.
Kevin?
This is Kevin Gedko.
Yeah.
We are having on Zoom, I'm unable to hear Commissioner O'Connell when he speaks.
That's by design. Now, can you hear me now?
Faintly. Everybody else is more clear and more pronounced.
All right, I'll try holding the mic closer.
Did that sound better, Kevin?
There's still a significant difference despite holding the mic closer.
How about this?
That sounded great. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I don't think we made a motion to approve this, so I will move to approve the order for docket number 25-00037. Okay, we have a second.
Second,
Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Yes.
Commissioner Nyberg.
yes.
The motion to approve the order in 25-00037 passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now we're on to the regular action items on the agenda. And the first item is docket number 24-00157 UT. And presenting for the General Counsel's office, we have Mr. Robert Lundeen. I will turn it over to you, Mr. Lundeen.
Thank you and good afternoon, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Alrighty, then today I have prepared for you a final order and a final rule in docket number 24-00157 UT. This is the rulemaking on the energy efficiency rule 17.7.2 NMAC.
Thank you.
So the final rule is attached to the final order as Exhibit B. Exhibit A to the final order is a red line of the proposed rule that was issued back in February as a notice of proposed rulemaking. And additionally, the final order has an Exhibit C, which is a red line version of the rule against the existing Rule 1772. In the final rule, there is one sort of major substantive change from the proposed rule that was issued in February. This relates to the cap on the utilities earned incentive. There were many proposals in the docket. There were many comments on increasing the incentive cap. Many of the proposals asked for a 15% incentive cap. However, PNM had commented that 2% would be more reasonable. Given the overwhelming comments asking the commission to increase the incentive cap, there would be a 2% increase on that in the red line version. Additionally, the final order does three other things besides adopting the final rule. It contains a directive to SPS to file its next energy efficiency plan case on a date certain that realigns it with its historical filing date. It provides PNM a variance to give it more flexibility in the filing of its next or its 2026 energy efficiency plan. And it would open a new docket to consider a potential rulemaking on demand savings targets, which was requested by multiple parties in this docket. Just the last thing I'll say is that this case has flowed very smoothly so far. Prior to issuing the NOPR, the commission had impaneled a working group. The working group had broad representation across industry and other stakeholders. The working group's proposal contained many aspects that have been carried through to the proposed rule and the final rule. And I have received significant feedback from many stakeholders that the working group process, the workshop process, and the rulemaking in general was very beneficial and helpful for everyone. So I'd just like to make those comments, and with that, I can stand for questioning.
Thank you for the presentation, and I agree with the comments of the result of the process with the working group and having so much stakeholder input. It really puts the commission in a better place to know that many of the changes that are in this rule are changes that the stakeholders worked on and came up with collectively. And I agree that the process just worked really well for this item. And so want to express my thanks to those involved. I certainly appreciate it. And I think it also lends itself to a more productive environment, regulatory environment where parties can work together. And, I don't know that that's always going to be the case. But, as much as I really would love it to, but it's a really nice thing to see. Commissioners, do you have any remarks that you would like to make on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question, and I don't know whether it was changed, Mr. Ledeen, or not, but in 17.7.2.15, the measurement verification process, the independent evaluator, was something changed regarding the requirement to evaluate every program every 3 years? Was there any modification to that, or does the comments that were made still apply?
Thank you for your question, Commissioner. So that section of the final rule does have some red lines in it. Those red lines were meant to kind of revert it back to how the existing rule reads. Because in the proposed rule, we had struck one of these sentences that, on its face maybe appeared duplicative, but through comments realized that it actually was more of a substantive change than I had realized. So we added that back in because that was not the intent to remove that. So the way the measurement and verification procedure works is that annually the utility is required to submit an independent evaluation of their energy efficiency plan. That annual evaluation may look at a subset of the approved programs, but every program must be evaluated at least every 3 years. So the issue that arose in striking and re-adding that language in was whether or not every program would have to be evaluated every year. And I think this clarifies that it does not. It just, every program must be evaluated every 3 years, and the utility must submit an annual evaluation every year, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, it seemed to me in reading the comments that that was probably one that we should give a little more leeway, and it sounds like we made it. And let's see. You know, the statute requires us to remove regulatory disincentives, and so I'm assuming that the rule overall tries to remove those disincentives and to recognize the importance of energy efficiency in not only the planning, but in the application.
Yes, sir, that's correct. And specifically the decoupling provision in section 19 of the rule really is meant to kind of address that disincentive part of the energy efficiency kind of problem, which is, if a utility does more energy efficiency, then they get or they receive less energy sales and less profit. So there's a disincentive to do energy efficiency.
And then my last comment is the rule duplicates the language in the statute to a large part. Is that something that the parties want in the rule, or is that just something we traditionally do? Because we don't have to repeat statutes in our rules. The statutes are already published, but there's great repetition of the statute in these particular rules, and I just didn't know why people were having to read both the statutes and the rules and read the same language.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I think there's maybe two aspects there. First is I try my best not to repeat statute when I'm in control of drafting a rule because it's duplicative. But the second kind of drafting concern there is if the rule is interpreting an area of statute, and to be able to understand it, you would need to read both side by side. Sometimes it is helpful to just have it all in one place. So it's a little bit of a balancing act, but I try my best to not be duplicative with these things.
Yeah, I appreciate that. If the parties thought that added something, then maybe I could see it, but one having to read both the statute and the rule and reading the same language over just seemed to be repetitive, but it's fine. I don't have any other concerns. Your big concern you've addressed, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Lundin, thank you for your work on this. And, you do a lot of our rulemaking work, and I know it's a lot. So thank you for getting another one across the line. Just wanted to ask a question, in this draft order, we're opening a new docket 2500046 UT, rulemaking related to demand saving targets for electric public utilities. And my understanding is that that's to explore providing incentives for things like demand response. There's also, it's come up just very recently, the concept of amending the UCT to include things like social cost of carbon. Is that something that can be considered in 2500046, or do we need to do something different?
Thank you, Commissioner, for the question. The way that the docket is captioned currently, or the docket that will be opened, is specifically related to demand savings targets. So I think we would need to take an extra step here in expanding that to potential revisions to the UCT, and I think that is a simple change that I can make in the final order. But yeah, just please let me know if that's what the commission wants to do, and I'll make it happen.
Well, yeah, I wasn't sure I wanted to make that change in this order just because I understand impatience and expedience, but I also, as I said, when we encountered this issue at a previous meeting, for me, it falls in that if you want to go far, go together. So I would almost prefer if the folks who are proponents of that would create a petition for rulemaking, redline the rule, get as many people on board as possible and file that petition, because that'll help move the rulemaking along rather than trying to kludge that into the existing. So that's just what I think is the best approach, but just thought it'd be worth having a discussion here because I know people are interested in it. And again, that's one commissioner's opinion, not opinion of the commission. But I would say I'm fine with what you've proposed here, just letting people know they're going to see that rejecting proposal to amend the UCT in this order, that doesn't mean that's a closed issue. And if you're really interested in getting it, I echo what Commissioner Aguilera said. We frequently get situations where we're trying to decide, well, what is public interest? It's very helpful in deciding what's public interest if the utilities and the communities that are served by the utilities come together and at least seed that discussion, if not develop it. So then I feel more confident that I'm working in that space of what's the public interest and not just what does Pat O'Connell thinks the public interest. So anyway, thank you for answering the question, Mr. Landina. I don't have a request or recommendation to change the draft you gave us.
Well, we have a proposed final rule. Thank you for the discussion. I'm thinking maybe we're ready for a motion, and if there's further discussion, we could go ahead and do that. So I move to approve the final rule in docket number 24-00157-UT. Is there any discussion, any further discussion, I should say? Seems like not. I think we're ready for a vote.
Did we have a second? Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Yes.
Commissioner Nyberg.
Yes.
The motion to approve the order posted in the UCT rulemaking matter passes unanimously, Mr. Chair. Or excuse me, the energy efficiency rulemaking.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is an El Paso Electric petition for variance in docket number 25-00021-UT. And presenting for the General Counsel's office, we have Alyssa Herrera Waldrop. Ms. Waldrop, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, commissioners. Before I get started, I just want to make sure that you can hear me clearly.
We can.
Okay, thank you. This matter before you concerns EPE's variance request from Rule 17.5.440.8C1 NMAC, which I will refer to as Rule 440. In its petition, EPE asked the Commission to grant a variance from Rule 440, which requires electric utilities to provide notice to the Commission 30 days prior to the start of construction projects, particularly ones that are related to extensions, system improvements, repairs or replacements, or additions to its infrastructures. EPE had 6 construction projects that began between August and November of 2024, in which its Rule 440 reports were not filed with the Commission. For that reason, EPE brought its petition for variance and asked the Commission to accept its variance request and Rule 440 reports at this time. Variance requests can be brought by utilities under the Commission's procedural rules, and the Commission has broad discretion to grant or deny such requests. So before you today, there are 3 different orders. The first order grants the variance request in part by accepting the Rule 440 reports as filed on the day of the petition. The second order denies the variance request, accepts the Rule 440 reports as of the day the petition was filed, and also requires EPE to file a response in the docket to show cause as to why it should not be penalized for its noncompliance with this rule. And the third order also denies the variance request, requires EPE to file amended reports into the record, and also issues a monetary penalty to EPE for its noncompliance. With that, I will go ahead and stand for questions on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation and for laying out the options. The 440 reports are reports that the commission and staff receives in order to evaluate, maybe evaluate is not the exact word because the evaluation can also come later, but to review projects that the utilities are undertaking that do not have to go through a CCN project. And this is efficient because the utilities require some deference to fix something that might be broken and don't need to, I don't think you should be in a position to have to request approval for every little thing that they do. And so the 440 process allows the utilities to do the work that they need to do, and also gives the commission and staff a heads up, for lack of a better way to say it, that they will do it. And depending on the cost threshold of the projects, they might need to email the commissioners directly. And in this case, El Paso did not file those 440s. And so when we look at the standard that we use to evaluate variance requests, one of them has to do with meeting the purpose of the rule. So how is this variance request going to meet the purpose of the rule? And also, how is it going to meet the public interest? And I think if the purpose of the rule is to allow the commission an opportunity to review the cost and the estimated cost in the project, by not filing the 440s, the commission no longer has that opportunity. And so I don't see how then this variance request meets the commission's variance standard, because it's not meeting that purpose of the rule of providing the opportunity. And so one of these options that denies the petition is mine, one that I proposed. And so, commissioners, at this point, I wanted to turn it over to you. I know that there's also a further discussion about potential penalty, and we can talk about that as well. But do either of you have any comments?
I guess my only comment would be, my preference would be to grant the variance and make it retroactive, and we don't have the orders that does that before us, but that would be my preference. And then I've heard that maybe there's a concern with El Paso Electric not timely advising us of matters that we need to be advised of. And this seems to be another of a series of reports that were not timely filed. And I think that may be what the penalty is for, but for my 2 cents, I'd prefer to maybe have a discussion, and I think we have the authority to call parties before us and to tell us how they're going to fix that problem, if it is a problem. And so my preference would be to deal with it directly and call maybe the president of EPE before us and explain what procedures is he putting in place to make sure that we get documents timely filed so that we're not having to deal with these variances every other meeting.
Yeah, thank you both for that. On the drafter of the monetary penalty, reason for that is twofold. One, what Commissioner Aguilera said, point of the rule is to get opportunity to look at projects before shovels start digging and dirt starts flying. So just if you look in the concept of the rule, the damage has been done. So, and from that point of view, variance isn't appropriate. And then the way I see the difference between just putting a monetary penalty out there now and the other order is the other order asks, for motion to, or more process to explain why a monetary penalty shouldn't happen. From my point of view, we've already gotten 2 bites at the apple from El Paso. They filed their variance, which was interesting to read. There were some things in there that I took as threats instead of arguments, like, hey, if you don't grant the variance, you're not going to get this information. Like, well, that really only happens if you're never going to put the thing in the rate base at your next rate case. So, the legal risk that El Paso was worried about when they were asking for a variance was created when they didn't file the reports. There isn't anything we can do now that I think changes that situation. And then again, information on the project after the project has started construction will come in the rate case when they come to put it in rate base. So when I read that, it just kind of showed me that maybe they didn't see the rule as anything other than just an informational filing. It doesn't matter when you file the information. Then other parties filed responses, staff and City of Las Cruces and forgetting the others. But anyway, pointed out that really the damages didn't get the information before construction started. So there's opportunity. It's only 30-day, but it is a review opportunity, and staff has availed itself of that opportunity on other projects. I remember we had a substation that P&M is building that came in as a 440 for a substantial amount of money. And so we had a good review on that and good conversation about what to do about that. Staff and the commission were deprived of that opportunity already. And then the other thing that it deprives us of is not just the legal review that staff has opportunity and they have opportunity to put their hand up and say, hey, let's talk about this before we roll the trucks. The other is hoping that staff gets to the point where they've got a good database on these projects. I mean, some of them, a lot of these, for example, are just bread and butter transmission projects. 440 comes in with a cost estimate. It'd be great if we'd have opportunity again before trucks start rolling to say, gee, this project looks particularly expensive. And so before we get in a situation where it's built and then we're trying to decide how much goes into rate base and whether it was prudent or not, we get an opportunity to at least put our hand up before that happens in a moment that maybe there's opportunities to make adjustments. So that's the damage that was done. El Paso didn't acknowledge that until they filed their response to comments. So again, and then I also, my goal isn't a penalty that cripples El Paso or anything like that. It's just live within the concept that the point of what we do is managing incentives. And so the story that was presented here was El Paso blamed it on 2 employees that were new, that didn't know their jobs. So if we're trying to create an incentive for El Paso management to train and properly equip their employees, the thing that will get management's attention is a monetary penalty. So it'll just add something that management's gonna have to deal with while they're working through their opportunity to make a reasonable return. So the penalty that's in here is $45,000. So it was calculated as 6 instances at 7,500. Max would be 6 at 10, so 60,000. If we go from the El Paso story, that was really 2 employees that they're pointing at, then maybe it's something more like 7,500 times 2. But so anyway, I'm flexible on the amount of money. I just think that we've already given El Paso 2 bites at the apple to explain this. And so do we want to give them a third? Just from a pure interest point of view, I'd kind of like to see how they try to improve their position with a third chance. So anyway, that's okay, but I think I'm firmly in the camp that variance needs to be denied just because Rule 440 is important. It's one of the few tools we have to work on affordability before money gets spent. That's what was harmed here, and just because affordability is so important, that's why 440 is so important. That's why merits penalty. The point that this isn't El Paso's only instance with administrative oversight is true, but for me, it's not the justification. It's just, let's focus on how important Rule 440 is and do something that incents El Paso's management that when they're putting employees in a position to comply with laws and rules of the state of New Mexico, that they help them do it. So that was my logic for how I got to where I'm at.
Well, thank you for that explanation. And I'll explain why I included a process for an order to show cause. There are other parties to this case, and I think that they can help determine what I'll say remedy or penalty should be. Because we don't have any clear precedent as to the number, and I think that if there is a monetary penalty, the parties can help us find what the right number is. And I think there are a few considerations that I guess I should explain as to how I get to what a right number is. The first is that they self-reported. To me, that does make it less bad. I think the failure is still there, and so that's why we're talking about denying the variance and potential penalty. But I think it would be a different situation if there was an audit and we identified that several 440s had not been filed. I think that would be a different situation. The other thing that I'm considering is that some of these projects are coming from El Paso's FERC interconnection process, and El Paso still has an obligation to file the 440s, but they also don't have a whole lot of say as to whether, given FERC's policy, as to whether they're going to pursue those projects or not. They have an obligation to expand their system to accommodate the customers. And so there is some other policy that is at play here that I think should be considered. And but in looking at the record, I think that we have often included an order to show cause, although it appears that the commission has also included a monetary penalty directly. And so I was initially thinking that the process of including an order to show cause would be more consistent with our precedent. In doing further research, with help from OGC, it seems like maybe that is not necessarily the case. And I think that's what it is. I am also firmly in the camp that the variance should not be granted, and I don't think that we should grant the variance retroactively. You know, if we did, I think it should be as of the date that El Paso filed, but the order that I propose would not grant the variance, but it would accept the 440s and require them to update them, the 440s, with some information that needs to be corrected. And even then, I don't know that it almost seems like a distinction without a difference. El Paso makes the argument that if the commission does not accept these, that they could be vulnerable to arguments during a rate case that the commission should not approve these costs because 440s weren't filed. I'm not sure that, you know, don't want to prejudge that, but I would be surprised if the commission found that if these are costs that are prudently incurred, then El Paso needs to be able to recover their cost for that.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Aguilar. I agree with that. Where I was coming from is, yeah, I'd be surprised that that's the reason that something that is legit, used and useful doesn't get into rate base. I also, from experience, have never seen a legal argument that somebody won't make. So both sides of that, I think, are true.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to explore a little bit about the idea of a variance, and you stated that that it didn't meet one of the criteria, and I guess I'm assuming that the criteria are the criteria set forth in the rule that must be pled in connection with the issuance or the request for a variance. Because the way I view our authority and the way I view variances is that we have broad authority to grant a party some leeway in a strict application of our rules. And so I don't think we should ever give up any portion of that broad discretion that's afforded us. And so I view our rule as setting forth pleading requirements that must be pled, but in no way restrict this commission in a decision as to whether or not we extend that discretion to not adhere to the fine points of a particular rule. And so on 2 points, I think we could grant the variance, and I think we should grant the variance, and I think it should be retroactive, because you're basically saying we're giving you a relief from the requirements of 440 because you miss a deadline, but we're going to allow you to put those filings into the record at this date, although we're going to act as though those filings were made on the date that they were due months ago. And so I think we have the authority to grant that dispensation and you know, would do so. And so I've heard several times that the commission or in commission meetings that we're looking at our rule regarding variances as setting standards for granting a variance. And I I don't get there. I don't think that the pleading requirements, go to our real authority and our ability to, grant, our discretion or use our discretion to grant, relief from the strict application of a rule. So, maybe haven't had a full discussion on those issues, although this is probably the 10th or 12th variance discussion we've had. I just still am not comfortable saying that those 5 items are the standards that must be met in order for us to grant a variance. I see them totally as pleading requirements to give us some idea as to where the petitioner is coming from to try to convince us why we should exercise our discretion to do what they are asking us to do. So I don't know whether I'm clear or not, but that's kind of my view on the issue of variance.
I appreciate that, and I think that is getting more to a change in the commission's precedent and how it's applied the variance requests, which I think would be more appropriate if we had that conversation in a more generic proceeding where other parties are also able to consider or provide input. And just to briefly engage with that, I don't think that the variance standard, as I understand, has been applied over several years through commission orders, that it in any way restricts the commission's authority on whether to grant or deny. It's asking us to consider whether the variance is in the public interest. That encompasses whatever the commission decides that can consider. And so the other thing that I would provide is that by having a variance standard, the industry knows what to expect. They know how we're going to be able to treat their variance and how we're going to think about it. And it helps them make their arguments, and anybody who is protesting it helps them also frame their arguments because there are parameters around it. And the other thing that I think is important for having a standard is that it helps us make sure that we're consistent, that we're not treating one utility different than the other. And so I don't think that the commission's implementation of the variance standard is one that has just been treated like the standard as just the pleading requirements, and then you met those pleading requirements, and so it's approved. Or I also don't think the precedent supports that you meet the pleading requirements, and now we're going to conduct whatever analysis we conduct. I don't think it's the precedent has implemented the policy in those ways, and so I think that if we want to talk about a change in the policy, we can definitely do that, but I don't think this is the proper vehicle to do that.
Well, I don't think it's a change in policy. The rules are the rules, but if indeed the precedent is that we look at that rule as setting forth the requirements in order for us to grant a variance, I would certainly be in favor of overruling that precedent and embark on a different course, because I don't think that we should limit our discretion, and a variance is so facts specific that you're rarely going to be encountering the same facts when matters come before us. And so, for instance, if we deny the variance in this case, are we saying that if you do not timely file your 440 requirements, that you will not be able to get a variance, even though facts in another case may be such that it would entirely be possible? The precedent value of this is based upon the facts and circumstances of each case, and rarely are two cases going to be exactly the same. And that's why the issue of variance is so important, and it does rely upon this commission's serious contemplation and really weighing, is that request in the public interest? Because that controls virtually everything we do. And so, I think we look at each variance. Did they properly plead it? Yes or no? If they didn't, then it's easy to get disposed of. If they properly pled it, then we consider whether the facts and circumstances in that case warrant some departure from the black letter law of our order or regulation that is being imposed, that they're requesting relief from. And again, we would consider the merits of their argument. We consider our view of what the public interest is, and whether that request should be granted or denied. And in this case, like I've said twice now, I would grant the variance, and I would even make it retroactive so that it's deemed to be a timely filing, and we move forward. But that's not what's being argued by my fellow two commissioners, and so I'm not going to go down that path. But I do think I don't think the variance discussion is necessarily a change in the rule, because the rule, as I view it, is a pleading rule. It's not something that borders us. And if we do have precedent that deems that to be setting the standard, then I certainly would vote to override that precedent and restore our discretion on variance request. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think if that's the will of the commission, we can definitely have that conversation. The final standard or criterion of the standard is whether the variance request is in the public interest. And so I think even if we change kind of how we think about it, we end up in the same place, because we're still evaluating whether the request is in the public interest. With respect to the well, I don't know that I was going to address the retroactiveness, but maybe that's more of the same conversation. I think the other approach that El Paso could have taken here is to file the 440s late. So I don't know that this needed to be a variance, and so that's why I don't know that it matters at this point. If the purpose is to give the commission an opportunity to review the estimated costs in the projects prior to construction, at this point it's moot. And so I don't think it necessarily matters for purposes of the rule whether we accept it as of the date of the the filing or accept it as of the date of this order or or really any other date. I think that if we grant it retroactively, though, what we want to think about is what message are we sending? Is it a message that it's okay that you don't file the 440s on time and the commission will grant you a variance? I think that would undermine what the purpose of the rule is.
Yeah, my version of that is for me, it's not about variance and whether we're changing our authority or not. It's just looking at the facts of the variance and then evaluating that, and then it led to the only outcome is deny the variance, right? The facts of the variance is the damage was done. The incentive to file the information changes as deadlines pass, right? The incentive for a utility is file your 440 timely. If you find out you didn't, then the next best thing is some version of self-reporting. And then if you don't, then you are taking on the risk of some grand guignol rate case where we're fighting over rate-based additions on procedural grounds instead of using useful. So every step of the way, the utilities have the incentive to file the 440 information. So the fact of the case that pushed me in to deny the variance is what happens to everybody else if you don't file it on time. And again, 440 is one of our few affordability tools. If you look at how things get into rate base, you have the big projects that get a lot of attention in IRPs and RFP results. You've got these medium-sized projects that have 440 filings, and you just got a lot of just day-to-day work that never have any filing associated with it. But all of that stuff is what will show up as a rate-based request in a rate case. So I don't want, because, frankly, we don't have opportunity to raise our hand on affordability on a third of what's going into the rate case. I don't want to give up that other third by granting a variance because a 440 wasn't filed timely. So again, I worked it from the back. I didn't think about, was this variance legally filed properly or not? It was, why does the rule exist? What are we hoping to achieve? What happened? And then thinking through different incentives.
I guess the question that I would have for you, Commissioner O'Connell, is whether you would be amenable to the order to show cause version. And I think aside from that, they should be, the two orders should be identical, or if not, very similar.
Yeah, you convinced me that that's the better path because frankly, I was just struggling with what's the right number, right? And I came up with two different formulas, and the number is within a range between 100 and 10,000. And so anyway, the number I came up with was, I knew just a Pat O'Connell arbitrariness, and if there was desire to get there in this meeting, then there would at least be one or two other people who had an opinion and we could compromise on a number. But you convinced me a bigger process with more voices is a better way to go. And then also just intellectually curious to see if with the third bite in the apple, El Paso can talk me off of that position.
Given that, I would move to adopt the order denying variance and order to show cause.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Commissioner Nyberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
and Commissioner Nyberg, can I confirm that that was a yes?
I vote yes in the result. I may have a separate opinion on the variance issue, but I concur with the result.
In that case, the motion to approve the order that's requesting a show cause process passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Waldrop, don't go anywhere because you're also next with this next item, which is docket number 2500036 UT. And I will turn it over to you for presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to all the commissioners for the insightful discussion. I appreciate all of your discussion on that matter. Now, in this matter, it concerns joint petitioners variance request from Rule 17.9.573.16A NMAC, which I will refer to as Rule 573. In its petition, joint petitioners request 4 variances to amend the disclosure form that is required to be initialed and signed by subscribers to community solar projects. According to joint petitioners, the potential modifications to the disclosure form that they propose would avoid the burden of obtaining additional signed forms to reassign a subscriber to a new project, resize a subscription, or to adjust a project size. The proposed modifications would also eliminate the requirement for the subscriber to initial the form 12 times. And with that, variance requests can be brought by parties under the Commission's procedural rules, and the Commission has broad discretion to grant or deny such requests. So before you today, again, is 3 different orders. The first order grants the requests, which allows the proposed modifications to go into effect. The second order grants the variance requests in part and temporarily, which would allow most of the proposed variances to go into effect only to remain in effect until the related rulemaking docket currently open for Rule 573 reaches a final disposition. And the third order denies the variance requests and explains that the proper venue for making the proposed modifications is through rulemaking. With that, I will go ahead and stand for questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. Commissioners, either of you would like to start on this one?
No, I mean, it's an interesting one because I understand the petitioner's request. Also, just things I was thinking through on that is make sure we're not defeating consumer protection. And then the third was, petition for variance, but why wouldn't this be better as a rulemaking? And we do have a rulemaking going on right now. So if it's better as a rulemaking, then we ought to just deny the petition and encourage them to either work it into the existing rulemaking or do what I said earlier in the meeting, get as many people together, redline the rule and bring it in as a petition. So then instead of something that looks more like a permanent variance, we have a rule. So that's what I'm thinking through on that. But
Mr. Chair, I would agree with Commissioner O'Connell on that aspect, because when I review this case, number one, that section of Rule 573 is protection. It sets forth things that we are supposed to be protecting the subscribers. And so that gives me some heightened sense on this. The second thing, when I look more closely at this, there's no real controversy in front of us. There's no project that they're requesting the variance for. They're requesting a variance to a rule, so there's carte blanche change in the rule. I don't think the variance process is a proper vehicle to change our rules. In fact, I would argue that it is illegal for us to use a variance process to change our rules. rulemaking requires public participation. Rulemaking requires a protracted process that one has to go through in order to change a rule. And so just granting a carte blanche variance to the rule when there's no real controversy in front of us or no real project in front of us seems to me to be an end run around the rulemaking requirements. And so I would flat out deny this request because there's no real project in front of us that we're granting some relief to proceed. And frankly, it's an effort to undermine the rulemaking process, and there are probably a number of lawyers in the state that would be willing to take this thing up on appeal. Now, Ms. Herrera-Waldrop told me that we've done this in the past, and I bet none of those cases were appealed to the court. But I would think that if we engage in carte blanche variances to a rule, that in essence is de facto rulemaking. And I think we'd be in trouble if that thing ever got to the Supreme Court.
Well, that resonates with me, and I'll out myself as, because we have three versions, and at this point we don't know whose version is whose. My version was the one that temporarily grants the variance until the final rule on the rulemaking process, because I agree with you. I don't think this is the right vehicle for us to make a permanent change. I think that if the commission is going to consider these changes, it should adopt them in a rulemaking through a process where we hear from all of the parties. And I do think this one is a little bit different because the commission has denied this request already, albeit without prejudice. And so your comments resonate with me.
Well, to disclose, the order I drafted is the final order denying petition. No surprise. So I wouldn't even partially grant it because there's no project. You're not granting a variance for a project. You're granting a variance from a rule that would apply elsewhere. And there's a lot of reasons that I have outlined why that shouldn't occur. One of them is if we granted it, a subscriber who has subscribed to a solar project in Catron County could all of a sudden have it moved to Curry County. Not even the same utility is involved. But under the rule as requested, they said they could move it anywhere, as long as it's the same subscriber organization. It doesn't work. So there's nothing for us to really hang our hat on with respect to an actual variance request. This is a variance of the rule as a whole. And the outcome, there's many examples that you could point to that don't make sense in light of the community solar requirements of staying within the utility's geographic area. And we could go on with some other things, but they're requesting that the subscriber organization can unilaterally change the contract. And I have a problem with one party being able to change a contract term without the other party, particularly the subscriber who we're supposed to be protecting, doesn't have a say in that. So if we want to continue to go through those examples, I can go through them, but my proposed order is a final order denying the petition, and it's just basically says that it should be denied for the reasons that I've outlined. There's no real controversy. In fact, we could deny it because it's not right. There's no controversy in front of us, but it just denies the variance because it is a rulemaking instead of a request for a specific project being given some dispensation as to the strict application of a rule.
Commissioner, if I may, or Mr. Chair, I know you were about to talk. I just wanted to make a quick comment if that's all right.
Please go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure I mentioned too that in terms of the moving the projects, all three of the options does also include some language saying that terms and conditions established in that disclosure form would not change. It would remain in effect. So in terms of consumer protection and in the purpose of Rule 573, that is included. So across all three options. And so I just wanted to make sure that I stated that as well, because I understand the consumer protection aspect in not notifying or the subscribers not knowing that these projects could be changed and how that might impact them financially. And so just to be clear, we did require, and I believe the petition stated it as well, that any terms and conditions that are expressed to the subscribers would remain in effect regardless of the change in the project. And so I just wanted to make sure I let you know that too, in case there was a question about the Rule 573's protections and what doing any of these options would mean.
Thank you. And I think that's a good point as well. These consumer protections were added here initially for a reason. And that's another reason why I don't think, aside from, I think the really good arguments Commissioner Nybert made with respect to the legality, but also just backing up a little bit and thinking more about common sense. I think there are some arguments to merit not requiring as many initials by consumers, but the unfortunate reality, and I'm not talking about the community solar program, but just rooftop solar in general, there have been many customers who have not been sized properly. And, they're unfortunately, some of the companies are not as good as others. And there is a reason for the consumer protections. Are we ready for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the final order denying petition in docket number 25-00036-UT.
I'll second.
Okay, and just for a little bit of discussion, I just want to, I think I know the answer, but I want to be clear that in the denial order, it is based on the fact that the proper vehicle is rulemaking and does not have arguments that I guess could prejudge the commission's determination in a rulemaking proceeding.
I can tell you there was no intent to do that. The language is simply joint petitioner's petition is denied, period. And then it goes into the boilerplate motions for rehearing shall be timely filed. The findings and conclusions are pretty brief as well. The finding is simply the commission finds that the petition for variance should be denied. The commission finds the proper venue for modifications to Rule 573 and the disclosure form are through the proper rulemaking procedures. The commission finds that the request of joint petitioners is really a request to change the rule and disclosure form. And if the joint petitioners want to propose changes to the rule and form, then joint petitioners should continue their participation in docket number 24-00258-UT, which is the current rulemaking docket in which amendments to Rule 573 may be proposed. And then the following conclusions: the joint petitioner's variance request should be denied. A variance request is improper to change rules for all matters that fall within the rule. And if the commission desires to make the change requested by joint petitioners, then it must engage in rulemaking. So it's pretty straightforward. I don't think it goes beyond the bounds of just denying the request.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. Looks like there's no more discussion and I think we're ready for a vote.
So what we have for vote is a vote for a final order that would deny the petition. Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Yes.
Commissioner Nybert.
Yes.
The motion to approve the order denying the petition passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And thank you again for the discussion. The next item on the agenda, item 4, is docket number 24-00266. And presenting this item is Mr. Fisk from the General Counsel's Office. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
This matter, as you know, concerns the interlocutory appeal that was taken by the BCP applicants, who I will define in a moment, from an order of the hearing examiners in this matter, which denied the BCP applicants' request for confidential treatment of certain information, mostly within documents such as the private placement memorandum and purchase and sale agreement, that was denied, the request for confidential treatment that was denied by the hearing examiners, that was appealed. The hearing examiners granted the motion to allow the appeal. The commission has taken action on the appeal in the sense that the commission has, in a previous open meeting, required supplemental briefing from the BCP applicants to support their claims, and also received briefing from staff and a group of interveners. The BCP applicants are a subgroup of the applicants in this case. They are specifically the applicants that are associated with Bernard Capital Partners, hence the BCP, including the infrastructure funds that, if the merger were to be approved, would own New Mexico Gas Company through subsidiaries, including a holding company, and the BCP applicants also includes that holding company. The BCP applicants does not include the applicants Amera or New Mexico Gas Company. I don't believe it includes New Mexico Gas Holding Company either. So the BCP applicants claim that the information that was sought by the hearing examiners in a series of bench requests, the documents, contain certain information that is subject to trade secret protection under the Uniform Trade Secrets Act, which has been adopted by New Mexico as it has many other states. They argued in their motion for interlocutory appeal, as well as in their underlying request for confidential treatment, and in their supplemental briefing, that this type of information is often accorded, the type of information they seek to protect is often accorded confidential treatment by courts around the country. And that this, in accordance with the UTSA, the Uniform Trade Secrets Act, they say they demonstrate, in my opinion, they demonstrate that this information does have value, independent value, economic value that derives from it not being known to the public. That's the first element of trade secret protection under the US UTSA, and also that they have taken reasonable they've made reasonable efforts to preserve the confidentiality of the information. The order that I have drafted would find that the information that they claim is trade secret is truly trade secret information, and would have the commission find that it should be protected from public disclosure. Now, this only concerns disclosure of the information to the broader public. Pursuant to the protective order in this matter, the unredacted documents have been made available to the hearing examiners, to me, to the commissioners, and to all the parties who have entered into a confidentiality agreement. So the only question is whether this information should be revealed to the public at large. And I sent, on Tuesday, I sent you a revised version with some relatively minor versions by Commissioner Nybert. And then today I sent you, just a few hours before the meeting, some also fairly minor revisions from Commissioner Aguilera. And with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Commissioners, any discussion on this item?
I'll just tell you what I've been thinking about when I've been looking at this, and you know, it's interesting because we've got a hearing examiner decision, and then we also have a recommendation from Office of General Counsel. I try not to be the fool that has himself for his own lawyer and listen to both of them. So as a commissioner, it was interesting to get in that spot where different recommendations from two groups of lawyers I respect and admire. Two things that are, I think, important is I wholeheartedly agree with the concept that transparency is in the public interest here. For this case, if somebody, you know, utility customers deserve to know who owns their utility. So that's kind of a threshold question. The other is where we're at in this case is an applicant who's applied to own a utility. So they're in a kind of a different posture than they will be. So, you know, whatever the commission decides to do here, I don't think it affects what would happen should merger be approved in terms of commission requiring financial reporting or other important disclosures that again are in the public interest. It's more about where are we at right now in this case and applying the law. And then, you know, the other big thing is it's important for the commission to do its business in a way that business can happen. So those are the things that I've been weighing and how I am landing in the position of adopting the order that's been presented to us so by Mr. Fisk.
Thank you. And I think I'll just emphasize the part about that the parties to this case have the information subject to signing the confidentiality agreements. And in the order lays out the legal framework, but just to supplement that with how I was thinking about this is asking whether it is necessary in the public interest to release the information for full public consumption, including specifically in the interest of New Mexico Gas Company's current customers. And I think that would go whether the acquisition would be approved or denied. And balancing that with whether it is sufficient that the sophisticated parties to the proceeding have the information. And in thinking about that question, I think is how I answered for my part of this 1/3 vote, whether the information here is trade secret information or not that should be protected. And the other thing that I was thinking about is how could not releasing the information potentially harm New Mexico Gas customers? And one way that I thought is if there are future affiliates that let's assume for sake of argument that the case here is approved. If the investors here then purchase a natural gas fired facility that it is then also serving. And then in that situation, there is a conflict of interest where the investors might not have the incentive to care very much about what that contract and that rate might look like. There are protections that the commission would look at there, but just kind of thinking about this more generally, that could be a situation where not releasing the information could potentially hurt customers. In thinking about that even further, those kinds of situations are things that we can think about if this case is approved in the ring fencing, reporting requirements, if you purchase an affiliate somewhere in the supply chain. And so after thinking about that, I think that is what helped me determine that this is trade secret information, and there are still things that we can do to continue to protect the customers. Commissioner O'Connell also noted that this is for the case right now. There could be reporting requirements later. The other thing I would highlight is that this decision here, as I read it, is not generally applicable to all future cases. For me, this is a case-by-case decision where the commission needs to consider the circumstances in each case.
I would just add, for me, it's just, is this information protected by state or federal law? And if it is, it's our duty to protect the information. And it appears to me that the case has been made that it's protected information, therefore we have a duty to protect it. And like you said, if the transaction moves forward, then there's entirely different reporting requirements and all that. But this is still in the negotiation stage. So if this information is protected by state or federal law, we have a duty to protect it.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve turn to the order. That we approve the order reversing hearing examiner's order in docket number 24-00266-UT.
I second.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask for clarification?
Yes, please.
Just to let you know, the revisions that you and Commissioner Nybert made are consistent except for the choice of the title. Now, Commissioner Nybert has moved to include the title that he recommended, which is absolutely fine. But that would mean I would be removing the alternative title, order granting interlocutory appeal. So I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, and I maybe that was one of the edits that I had suggested to Mr. Fisk, which was to revise the title to say order granting interlocutory appeal.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay. And so just for sake of clarity for the motion, the one we're discussing is the one that has the title order granting interlocutory appeal.
Okay. Which is not in my book, but I will revise my motion to reflect that language.
I will third it.
All right, I think we can vote now. Commissioner Aguilera,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Nybert.
Yes.
The motion to approve the motion as board effect, on board effect, incorporating Commissioner Nybert and Commissioner Aguilera's edits passes unanimously, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Well, that was a lot. I knew in preparing for this meeting that, you know, it was clear there was a lot of substance that we would discuss today. So that's the end of this portion of the agenda. And so we'll move on to the next portion of the agenda, which is communications with Chief of Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ooh. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Lots of things happening at the PRC these days, not the least of which is the fiscal year comes to an end at 11:59 on Monday evening. New fiscal year takes effect July 1st. So our records, our ASD division, finance and budget are turning over documents and getting things done. So that's exciting. Mr. Chair, you'll have documents to sign as early as next week, so watch for those. The other thing that means is that all of those positions that we were successful in getting in the legislature, that budget will be freed up. So for those of you who are tuning in or who are interested in positions that might be available at the commission, watch for some postings starting to trickle out of the commission in the coming weeks. The other update, last time I told you about SPO is giving us the gift of a new classification system and structure. They were planning on implementing that in July. That has been delayed until August. So we have started the conversation with our employees. There was an all hands meeting last week to share some of that information. As information becomes available, we will be sure to disseminate that to our employees. And I really want to express gratitude to Sarah Valencia, our HR manager, for the countless hours of work that she has put in going back and forth with SPO to make sure that these restructuring changes really fits for our agency, which, as we all know, is really a unique agency and doesn't always match what's happening in the rest of the state position-wise. Another good, I want to move on to kind of a recap of what's been happening. That's fun. The executive team has finished a series of workshops led by international collaboration expert Mark Bennett, who has helped us really take our strategic plan that we had worked on collectively in 2023 and see where we need to go during the second half of that strategic plan. So that was a success, and I hope our executive team enjoyed and learned a lot from that. The other thing that's really exciting regarding training and our leaning into professionalizing the agency is we will be successful in bringing in a training from the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science at the State University of New York. That center is dedicated specifically to teach people who talk all day long about technical things to talk to people who are not technical. So we have secured that. That will be happening in July. That is for staff. Limited seats for staff, but we are working through that process, and I'm really excited to see where that takes us. And then last but not least, really exciting news is the e-docket system, the replacement that we've been working on and talking about. We are getting to the final stages of the first step, I guess. And that means the next step for our experts that we've kind of gathered, our team from throughout the agency, will start to get to see the suggestions and the brainstorming that they've been putting in over these last 2 months start to take effect into a model environment and start to see those changes in real time. So we had a team of several, sometimes one, more often several people and employees from each division, including your offices, collaborating with our development team and our project management team. And so those suggestions, those ideas, that vision will start to be a reality for them. We are still on track to roll out, go live in January for replacing that e-docket. So for us, we will be getting training internally. If you deal with our e-docketing system and our record system externally, you should expect to hear lots of communication this fall and winter about what to expect, what changes will be taking place, and we'll make sure that there's plenty of training and other resources available so that when we do go live, it can be as seamless as possible. And with that, I stand for questions.
I'm very excited about having a new e-docket system. And you mentioned the plan that we have for the agency, and the other updates that you have are also related to the plan and ideas that we had in the plan of how to make this agency better for staff and also external stakeholders with the e-docket. And so it's really nice to see that coming together. And I do appreciate the opportunity to take a look as we're halfway through that strategic plan. And for me, the discussions that I've been in have been an excellent reminder of where we're trying to head, and also good to continue to be motivated. So thank you to yourself and all of the other staff who continue to think about how to make this agency better and work in ways that do make the agency better. Commissioners, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I was gonna say that it's great news. We've got this training coming in from the Alan Alda Center. My first personal interaction or realization the thing existed was about 10 years ago. A friend of mine gave me a book. The title of the book is If I Understood What You're Saying, Would My Face Look Like This? And not quite sure why they thought I needed that book, but anybody at the commission who has opportunity to take that training, I think with the technical work we do, the strategic plan goal of demystifying the process, I think it'll be a great investment in yourself if you can do that. And so thank you for bringing that to us.
I suspect one thing that they'll teach them is no acronyms.
Suspect that too. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have communications with commissioners. I am, so as I mentioned, my travels were not great. I think I expected like a 7-hour trip and it was more like 17 hours. And so I'm running low on gas today, because I didn't get to actually go to sleep until 3 a.m. And then had to drive here. But the conferences that I went to were productive, and it's clear to me that as a region, with respect to transmission planning, we're having really good conversations in the Western interconnection. I think we're ahead of some of the other regions. And it's also different because most of the other regions have regional transmission organizations or independent system operators that already provide more effective transmission planning. And so in that sense, we have a lot of work to do, but I appreciated having those conversations, and I was kind of the voice of the Western interconnection at those conferences. And there were commissioners from other parts of the country that were explaining where they were. And so those are the communications I have.
I just wanted to say, Commissioner Nybert was on the trip, but we went to Corona last week, 10 days ago. And then as we were driving to Las Cruces today, we saw it again. But the facilities that have been built already for SunZia are impressive. And then, having tracked that project for a long time, I think they said it had been a 19-year approval process. It's was alarming or shocking or exciting to see how fast all that resulted in construction and infrastructure out. And then for electricity nerds, the HVDC station at Corona is worth seeing. There's they said it's, well, they're saying it's 2 of a kind on the planet because there's another one just like it at the end of the line in Arizona, but there's nothing like it on the planet right now. And again, also impressive. And thank you to Pattern and Corona. The village was very welcoming to us. We had a nice conversation after touring the facility. So trip well worth taking. Another item that I'll send out an email. I just WEC update. The company who has supported WEC in implementation of WREGIS or Regis, which is the REC tracking software or registry, so that if people generate renewable energy, they can register for the REC, which is a certificate that renewable energy was produced, and then that REC becomes a instrument that we use for compliance with RPS. It's also tradable, sellable, and you can use that same process to then retire the REC so it doesn't get double counted. So anyway, Regis is fundamentally important to implementation of renewable energy throughout the West. The notification that we have from WEC is that the company that supported WEC with software isn't going to do that anymore. So good news is plenty of notice, but we don't really know what's going to happen with that going forward. WEC's taking a 2-prong approach. One is issue an RFP to see if another company's willing to be a software provider. The other would be just recognition that it's not a core function of WEC to provide that service, and then kind of find a way to offload it. So anyway, that's worth paying attention to as that develops. So I was going to send that notice out to the Western Conference of Public Service Commissioners, just make sure they've seen it, and then certainly share it within the commission here. That was just the email I got today. And then just personal note, was delighted that your chair, I didn't see this meeting coming. So this meeting was a little more complicated than the meetings we've been having recently. And so thank you and kudos for doing a great job chairing this meeting. So thank you. Commissioner Aguilera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to the new seat. I was chiding Commissioner O'Connell when you weren't coming through the door that it looked like he was going to have to sit in the middle still, but you arrived and we're glad you were here. I too would like to echo my thoughts on to Pattern and to the folks in Corona that hosted us last week. Everything that Commissioner O'Connell said was not only accurate, but it doesn't even give a real impression of what's really going on in Corona, New Mexico. You have to see it to believe it. It's remarkable, and words can't do justice to all the work that's going on out there. And the folks in Corona have expressed their appreciation to the commission for coming to their community and seeing some of what we do actually on the ground and what's affecting their community. So I've received a number of calls from folks in Corona thanking us for that. I'd also like to thank the Doña Ana County Commission for extending us not only this room, but the hospitality that they've provided. And I suspect there's a way that we can officially send a letter from the commission to the Doña Ana County Commission expressing our thanks and appreciation for their hospitality today. And then lastly, I had dinner with the Senate Judiciary Chair, Senator Cervantes, who is from Las Cruces. And I kind of gave him a preview of some of the things that I thought we were maybe going to be requesting, including the bill that got pocket vetoed, and trying to tee that up for him as he hears it once again this upcoming session next year. And with that, hope everybody has a safe July 4th holiday. It's coming right around the corner, and we had very productive meetings with our leadership expert, and hopefully we can remember many of the things that he said, and maybe that will help us in our leadership of this agency so that it serves all the citizens of New Mexico. Also like to thank Elena McGoffney, who's a recent graduate of the New Mexico State Public Utility Policy and Regulation Program, one of Professor Blank's proteges. She's in the back of the room, and like to thank her for being here today and taking note of a commission meeting. So I thank her, and with that, I'll be quiet.
Thanks again to Doña Ana County for hosting us. We can definitely get used to this meeting room, which is much better than what we have in Santa Fe. And thank you all for coming. It's really nice to have this participation. Unless there is any objection, I think we're adjourned, right? We're adjourned.